You are listening to the Paracasual Destiny Podcast. Hello, thanks for tuning in to episode 1 of the Paracasual Destiny Podcast, where we talk about the game from a casual gamer's perspective. I'm Sooltime, and I'm here with Salliebug. Salliebug, are you here?
I'm here.
All right, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, so far so good. This is our first episode. Episode 0 was sort of a test run, and we were lucky enough. I think it's going to be a collector's item because we had an unexpected, I'll say, visit from our good friend Greenstegosaurus, a.k.a. Greenstego, a.k.a. Stego. Which was great.
Yeah.
That was awesome. I hope he or somebody else, one of our other mates, joins us today, either here in the studio on the Discord voice channel, or even in the YouTube chat. Would be nice to see some smiling faces, right? So we've got our coffee. What's on the docket for episode 1?
Well, there was some interesting news that came out in Destiny this week. That, for the most part, I think was well accepted, I guess is the way to say it.
Well accepted.
By most of the community. So maybe we should just kind of start off with that news.
And the news is?
The news is that the expansion that Beyond Light, I believe is the title, is coming out, that was due to come out in the fall, is now kind of got pushed to very late fall. November 10th, I believe. It was September 22nd.
Yeah, that's well beyond September.
Right. It was September 22nd, and they pushed it back. And most of the people who we follow and listen to and so forth all
they seem to be okay with it.
Pretty positive. Just saying, except for, I guess there's another game that is coming out within a week of that one, Cyberpunk. So there's a little bit of and I don't know anything about Cyberpunk.
Nor do I. So it doesn't really affect us. And
so it doesn't really affect us.
I think I'll continue to keep my head buried in the sand on that one.
So there was a little bit of concern about a slight concern about time management with that, but besides that, there was a lot of people are just saying, hey, if you need extra time to make a good product, we'd rather wait and have a good product than have a rushed product. And I think a lot of hardcore Destiny fans, and I would say we're casual players, but hardcore Destiny fans.
Casual player, hardcore fan. That's a front and the back of a t-shirt waiting to happen. So I would say, too, that not only does it bolster a little bit of confidence in Beyond Light being beyond good, but it also, I would say, well, the other side of that is the expectations are raised a little bit, perhaps, in some people's minds. But I was going to say the other good thing about this is a little sigh of relief to get all those raids done, or if you're into trials, trying to get that triumph. So moments of triumph's going to be a little more relaxed.
I want to say that when I
sigh
heard
of
the
relief
news,
for me.
That was how I felt about it the most. Like,
So
and
you actually spent your
we
day
missed
yesterday not playing any Destiny because of it, I think.
exactly like we mentioned in episode 0 that you and I are both educators, and the release in September is never a good thing for
Ugh,
us because September
it's
is
so
a
hard.
very difficult month for an educator. You're just getting back into the school year. There's a lot
A lot
going
of work to
on,
do, a lot of barbecues,
and it's even if it's a social
school
distance
events,
barbecue, uh,
orientations.
there's a lot that happens in the beginning of a school year, in the background,
Right.
of just going back to school, new lessons, and getting to know new students, and
And
like I
meanwhile,
said,
there's
all
just
orientations and
a
meetings
storm
and
of Destiny news and Destiny activities, and those big expansions are. Oh, think of Shadowkeep. It's all good. It's all fun. I think that it also helps balance the stress of going back to school as well. So I think it's a good thing.
But beyond that, I was also happy about it because there's so much in the game that we haven't, or I haven't, done. We do happen to have a couple of seals, and I'm pretty proud of those. They took some grinding, but they weren't. Some of the seals are out of out of my reach in terms of what I can do. And that's okay. I'm okay with that because I feel like those seals are, look, you look at the content that you enjoy, and if you want that title as part of your name, and you feel like these are things that you can pursue, I like having a little bit of direction, right? Like to say, hey, I happen to really like I happen to really like the lore, and finding all of those little bits and pieces of the lore. And you and I, actually, that is one of the things that you and I do kind of like to do. And so that is one of the that's one of the seals I wouldn't mind going after.
Yeah.
But I feel like as a casual player, I'm always kind of like feeling like I'm playing catch up, and
well, yeah, like I was
yeah,
talking
I
about.
want to do that, but I need to kind of stay current with this existing stuff. And
I feel like I've just done Tier 2 Reckoning for the first time, and then you think back of all this content, and when it drops, and you can almost go back to the calendar and say, oh yeah, that was that month. I didn't play at all because of what was going on with work or school or other projects outside of the video gaming realm. And so, yeah, it sets us back. But now what's cool also, I really like this idea of things going away into the vault, so to speak, because that's helped me sort of focus. Well, you know what? I want to experience the rest of the menagerie and the rest of, or just doing, the Niobe Labs quest in Black Armory before it goes away. I don't know if that's scheduled to go away or not, but there's things that, aren't going to be around. And luckily for us, we have the summer to pursue and sort of pretend to be hardcore gamers, at least time-wise. Skill-wise is a whole other conversation. But I've certainly clocked in a lot of Destiny, and I'm into the point where I can actually discuss mod slots and power leveling and ideas about that, which was, I think, dovetails nice to what we've been talking about here with the extra time we have on our hands to get some stuff done before the big new wave of Destiny content with the Beyond Light, is the ability to fully exploit some of the end game content or the deeper layers of Destiny, we've come across some problems that we can foresee being going forward as a casual gamer. There's definitely some problems, what I would actually label as problems with leveling up in Destiny, especially this whole honoring your time unwritten sort of contract we have with the game and the developers, and that is leveling up. And in particular, the smart versus dumb RNG of getting, and it goes for just leveling up to the soft cap of 1050, and if you want to get beyond 1050, and I was thinking about this the other day, Sally. We were talking about this. The dumb RNG is that you do a pinnacle activity to get +1 or +2, depending on the activity, above your current power level. And it's sometimes you don't get anything, especially if the item that drops is already in a slot that's already higher than your base power level. So, like if my power level is 1054, but I already have 1055 gloves, and I do a pinnacle activity, whatever it is, to get that +1 boost, and I get gloves, I really didn't get a pinnacle reward. There's been no power level progress there, and that was down to RNG. And I can't do the activity again, at least on that character. So that, for me, has become a deterrent to playing, which always signals to me that there's a bit of a problem with that. And I was thinking the other day, is the artifact supposed to be the Band-Aid for that? And so the developer's comeback is, well, you're leveling up your artifact, which is giving you +12 or whatever to your power level to compensate for the dumb RNG, right? But honestly, I think smart RNG would be a much nicer incentive in the level up structure. So that, what I mean by smart RNG is, so that instead of the gloves, I get the 1055 item drops into my class item that was 1052, or some place where it's needed, so it actually progresses my power level, and I got my pinnacle reward as advertised. What are your thoughts on that, Salliebug2?
It's definitely, I'm in agreement with you. It's definitely a frustration, especially since I feel like for again, kind of coming from a casual perspective, and from I'm a player who definitely benefits from getting that boost in light, right? Like, I kind of need it to stay alive. Yeah. That it's something that is, and I feel like I feel like the artifact and that boost in light with the artifact is kind of there for that reason, right? It's there for the hardcore gamer and those players that play a lot, that are highly skilled players, to be able to take on extra challenges like the Grandmaster Nightfalls and the other high end game, what they call end game content. So getting as high light, or just like the pursuit of how high can I get my light actually up. But for me, as a casual player, I feel it just kind of keeps my toe in the water. It kind of keeps me in the game, being able to touch some of that pinnacle content,
Right. Yeah.
And
okay.
so I feel like for, and I guess, like, I'm never going to go after a Grandmaster Nightfall. I don't think I have the skill level for it. And I'm okay with that.
Never say never.
Again, it's just one of the, yeah, I know. I always say never. And
you said you would never play Destiny back in 2014. It's true.
That is true. It's like, nah, it's not my type of game. And here we are.
Yeah. Freaking talking about it live later on YouTube, right? Unbelievable.
But so in that, for me and for from a casual player perspective, it's just like, yeah, that little bit of boost in light is opening up other content for me. And again, from the casual perspective, so needing it and wanting it from that perspective, but also, hey, I have 30-45 minutes to play today, right? That's what I can fit into my schedule and everything else that I'm doing in my daily grind. And so I decide I'm gonna just kick out those 3 Gambit games. Let's just go in, we'll hop in, we'll do 3 Gambit games. And 3 Gambit games, once you like go back to orbit and do all the intros and the if we're just playing, so we have to do matchmaking and all of that, that takes about 30 to 45 minutes. I think each game is about 10. Is that right?
Yep.
Am I off with the timing? I feel like it's about 45 minutes to do 3 Gambit games.
Yeah, it's about right.
And
más o menos.
You do your 3 Gambit games, you get the pinnacle piece, and for us, we had a glitch where the piece didn't drop at all.
Yeah.
So that was frustrating.
Well, that's a bug. That's outside of the conversation of the current system.
A weird bug, and it wasn't in my Postmaster. Like my Postmaster wasn't full or anything. Yeah. But beyond that bug, if you put that 45 minutes into it to say, okay, now I want that pinnacle gear so I can just, give myself a little bit, it's like slightly opening up the door for a little more content or helping you with a little bit more content, and it being an item you don't need, that is frustrating. And
I'm trying to think of the devil's advocate of this, and the only thing I can come up with is, hey, we gave you the artifact, level that up, and it'll make the pain of receiving, the same power, maximum power slot item. It'll make that pain go away. But it doesn't, because, you're not... It's not tied to what you're doing in the game, so it's so disconnected. That power artifact just sits there. How often do you look at it or interact with it?
After you've unlocked
the mods that you want. Right. That's a whole other discussion too about the mod system is a bit convoluted now too.
Well,
and it's not fun. I can come up with a devil's advocate, and my devil's advocate is, hey, just play the game and enjoy it. And you and I actually did that. Like, sometimes we actually just say that, right? We just come out and give that. We say that out loud to other people who complain about other content of the game. It's like, I don't feel necessarily like, well, no, it's not a waste of my time. I made the choice to play a game. It's playing a game, right? So I don't always understand that.
I chose to do in my free time. If I'm expecting, I think it's like taming your expectations, right? So if I'm going in and expecting, it's like, okay, I'm going to kick out those 3 Gambit games, and I'm going to get my piece of pinnacle gear, and I'm expecting to go up in light level, or to at least improve my my chances of going up in light level, and it doesn't happen. I don't necessarily think that it's it wasn't a complete waste of my time. It's just you have to tame your expectations because of the way they have their light level system right now.
I still think
on.
overall it's a problem that needs to be addressed one way or another by the developers. I don't necessarily have the solution to other than smart RNG, but I also get why they're doing it. They want to, it's time gate. It's slowing down your progress so that you don't have your career players, your glads, going through the content in 4 hours, and leveling all the way up, and after the thing drops, after the new expansion or season.
I feel like it's
drops.
A little more frustrating from someone who plays a little more casually, right? Because you have someone like Glad or other people who play games for a living and play this game in particular for a living, and it's not going to be as much of, once they've gotten to like whatever light level you can get to successfully solo, let's say the new dungeon. It's not, they don't really pay much attention to it anymore. So I feel like the artifact really is more here for people like us, and but they also just want to make sure that it's because it's not capped, right? That artifact isn't capped.
Yeah, it is. So I think it actually is. It's ridiculous. It's I don't know.
It's a ridiculous cap, and nobody's actually gotten to it yet.
Right. I think it doesn't go beyond 3 digits or something. I don't know what the cap is, or maybe it's capped at 100 or something. I don't. Well, I think the ultimate light level is capped. We call it light level because we're old players.
That's what I was saying.
It's like, really power level now, right?
Right, because I think we're at max power.
Right.
Right. What's the max? What's the hard cap? 1060, right?
Right.
So the hard cap is 1060, but the artifact you can just keep leveling up. And so I think their idea behind this is it's like, okay, you've gotten to 1060 and this artifact can level up. And if you play the game as hard, well, there's a cap on how many pinnacles you can get in a day, right? Or in a week.
Right.
Is that right?
Well, yes.
So, I mean, I guess in a way, if they did it the way kind of what you and I were talking, like if they had a little more smart RNG in that it's like you're only going to get a drop in a slot that you need that's lower light.
Correct.
That's at or lower light.
You're talking about the smart RNG, right?
Right, the smart RNG. So you're only going to get a drop. So if you do that, the more high-end hardcore player who plays more often will go up one light level plus. Like how many pinnacle items are there?
I think for them, honestly, at Salliebug, I think for them it's the difference between leveling fully up in 5 or 6 hours versus a day. I don't. No matter what you do, they're just gonna hammer it. They're gonna.
Right.
The community just gobbles up, which ties in back to, you made a good point earlier. You were alluding to this sort of the loot that you get, which is the little injection of dopamine from playing the game, versus the joy of just playing the game, and whether it's mindlessly playing and shooting the breeze with your friends over your communication choice, or just escaping for 20 minutes into the world that they've created, and riding around on your Sparrow and just being there. There's that sort of aesthetic that, as a casual gamer, you very rarely tire of that. But I gotta say, this is more of a PvE thing, because in PvP, if you're playing the objective, which is to get kills, then your senses are elsewhere. The environment and being in the game in a sort of aesthetic sense is, I think that's a different experience in PvP, because you're so occupied with other objectives. To whereas in a strike, it doesn't punish you to take a second to look over the cliff and see the view, or just appreciate sort of, that's cool what they did there. I never noticed that before. Those aesthetics, but also, like, we did those 3 games of Gambit. I think it was 3 games. We didn't get a drop, and then I had to ask myself. I was like, well, that sucks. But I had to ask myself, did I have fun the past 45 minutes? And the answer was an emphatic yes. I think one of the games was a blowout. I mean, we got on a team where we just got mowed over. But in a way, then sort of your rationalization is, well, the game didn't last long. They sent somebody over, shot us all, and got their primeval down, and that was a quick game, and it counts as a point towards the progression of the loot that we didn't know we weren't going to get at that point. But it was still okay. All right, that's good. But the other 2 games we played were awesome. They were like really close and going back and forth, and they'd come over and heal our primeval, we'd go over heal theirs. It was like back and forth. It was like fun. Come on, we got to do this. Come on, And I think we ended up winning those 2.
And I guess we should.
It was fun.
We should say that it's a Gambit Prime match, right?
Oh, right,
you
Gambit
and I haven't
Prime.
done an actual Gambit match in
like 20 years, right?
what seems like a super long time. And I think, again, that part of that is because you're talking about the timing. It's a slower paced game. The catch up factor isn't as easily attainable. I don't know. I haven't done it in so long. I feel like I can't even really talk about it. But so yeah, I agree with you. It's
now I want to go in and play just an old Gambit game just to experience it.
It would be nice if we could have someone in our circle join us, not today necessarily, but in a future episode, to talk about being a casual player, but also gets enjoyment, like, casually from playing PvP. Because I know that we have
some
people,
PvPers in our clan. If they would step forward one of these days.
And I know that there are people who, like you and I, will go in and do a few strikes or do a few Gambit games, which is semi-PvP.
Not really, but a little bit.
Or just go down on the planet that is the flashpoint and do that. Get our flashpoint. Or try to kick out some gunsmith bounties to try to get a few cores, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we would do, kind of like, we've got a half an hour or an hour to kind of just fiddle around. What do we want to do? And we can do the flashpoint, or maybe we should just pick up some gunsmith bounties and do some core farming. Whatever we want to do, but we have that kind of enjoyment for that level of casual. But I think there are other players, and you and I really aren't 2 of them, who want to hop on and really just play a few Crucible games. I mean, there are players who just say, the other content, like you were saying, was so beautiful, and yes, the environments are gorgeous, but and the aesthetics, but what the enjoyment piece that they get out of the game are just going in and playing casually a PvP game. And part of that, that it's not a casual, enjoyable experience for us is because we're just not really that great at PvP. and it stresses us out. And it's not a de-stressor, which is why we play the game.
It's a re-stressor. Hey, look who's joined us. We are joined by Greenstego. How are you today, Stego?
Hello, Salliebug and Sooltime. I'm doing just fine.
Awesome. Have you had any coffee yet?
I've had some iced coffee, yes.
Ooh.
I've had some breakfast tacos. I even did some dishes just now.
Wow. That is a productive morning.
It sounds like
I had a half
the
a cup
perfect
of coffee
morning.
And some water. I did wash my face. That's my production of the day.
All right. Oh, I also, Breath of the Wild. I played a little Zelda this morning.
Oh, so you're loosened up. You're really ready for the day.
That's getting too off topic, off task here. Yeah. But, got some shrines. Earned a couple hearts.
Sweet.
Isn't that part of the casual Destiny player, is that we want to expand our horizons and be able to touch there's other great things out there.
Yeah. Which is honestly one of the, I know you guys were touching on this earlier with the delay of Beyond Light. I'm ecstatic. Yeah. I'm relieved, that they're reducing the pressure of crunch, just because Romance Girl and I, for Bungie Day, we watched a documentary on Bungie, and just from the get-go, their culture was stay up late making the game, making Halo. And it's really comforting to hear that they're getting more comfortable with veering away from that. Just work during the workday, and at the end of the day, go home, do other stuff.
Right.
As a casual gamer, I'm all about that.
Yes.
Absolutely. That's when I game.
I think,
and you want to value the time of the people who are making this game that we love as well.
Exactly. And the other thing about the delay is now I've got more time to play my other games. This is something that Romance Girl has brought up several times. Another member of our clan is that she thinks that there should be scheduled content droughts. And maybe it's something where there's like increased valor and increased infamy, which is basically what we're going to be dealing with. They're like, so we've got a couple more weeks left. We're still going to have our live events for Festival of the Lost, which is one of the highlights of Destiny for me. I love Festival of the Lost. But they're basically just saying,
love it too.
Oh, it's great. But they're basically saying we're going to have some more Iron Banners, some Valor weeks, and some Infamy weeks, and increased Redacted, which I don't know what that is, but if it doesn't have to do with strikes, then I don't know.
Well, we do have something coming, right? Solstice of Heroes is still on the docket, and we don't know what
Solstice of Heroes
going to be.
Yeah.
Hopefully we get some amazing armor that will grind like crazy to level up, and then it'll be obsolete as soon as Beyond Light drops, right? I'll never forget that beautiful Solstice armor.
I don't think that's going to be the case because they
learned their lesson.
New system. But we've taught, and gosh, I wouldn't mind going into a little bit about the armor system in general from a casual player.
Okay.
It took me probably, I've been thinking about it for a really long time. It took me probably about 6 months to get the, when did Armor 2.0 come out? Was it last
Shadowkeep.
fall?
Shadowkeep.
Yeah.
It was Shadowkeep.
It was Shadowkeep,
All right, so
last fall.
I would say it took me more than 6 months. Let's just say about 8 months, 2 months into this new Armor 2.0, and I realized what that grind was actually going to be. But it took me a really long time to decide that there is no way I'm going to be able to get my armor, all of the armor that's sitting in my vault that I am never going to pull out, to masterwork, or even to a high enough level to use on a regular basis. So
it's expensive.
It's expensive, and then it sunsets.
It's super expensive.
Ooh,
and so I
ouch.
went into my vault and deleted all my gear except for the current season's gear, because I know that even though it's not,
even though it's ugly,
Sooltime, you and I have talked about it, and it's like I literally don't even use it. Like, why I'm keeping it, I don't know. I feel like this, like almost this need to, for no reason. But the only gear that I'm keeping is the raid gear.
Yep.
One, because I love it. I love the aesthetic of it, and it's like, okay, this is
which
gear
raid,
I
Sally?
had
Bug.
enough
Which raid?
resources to masterwork one set, not all 3 affinities, which is a whole nother thing. Like, I don't even have a full grasp on Armor 2.0, I must say. And by that I mean, okay, I know that I have a full masterwork set of raid armor, but I can't tell you what the affinity of each piece is and what mods are available to me for those pieces versus which mods aren't.
You should have that memorized by now.
And that's kind of frustrating from a casual player, right? Like, I feel like I need to have a whole separate spreadsheet and say, okay, so if it's solar affinity, then these are the mods that you can
those
slot
spreadsheets
into
are
it.
available.
If it's arc affinity, I don't really want to have to go do homework to hop in and play a game and decide what mod I can use. Like, I'm not quite sure. I don't have a full understanding of the mindset behind locking out certain mods based on the affinity of your armor. What are your 2 thoughts about that? If you guys don't mind talking about that.
The elemental affinity on armor, why it's there?
Yes. Yeah. Like, why do you think they've, and let's put that elemental affinity
to make it less overwhelming. As you
I could argue the opposite.
I would think that
but what's your go ahead.
When you're looking at your gauntlets and you want to slot a mod into one of the gauntlet pieces, if it had enhanced loader for all the different types plus enhanced weapon loader, it would just take up the whole screen.
Okay, yeah, to accommodate the depth that they're going for. So I think that's very good point. So I think they're going for depth there. I'm a little more pessimistic about it. I was always thinking like, oh, okay, so this is a way to get us to want to grind more, so that, hey, I have 2 void gloves and 1 arc, but I need a solar. I need a solar with a decent roll. So I thought it was more of a time-gated thing, so that you would go out and try to make sure that you have 1 of each affinity, rather than just settling and making the affinity, the elemental affinity, arbitrary. But that makes sense, because it is. I mean, one thing that's good about Armor 2.0 is it's brought depth and options, and I think things like Charged with Light or the Seraph weapons with the Warmind cells. I think that's just awesome. I think that's so cool to have the ability to make builds that do these weird things and really boost you. The problem is it's such a chore right now, the way it's set up, to get to those setups, and it's costly and clunky. The interface for me on Xbox anyway is a little bit clunky, and I find myself just going, So I've got, this decked out for scout rifles. I just want to jump into the raid, or I just want to jump into the game. I don't want to spend 5 to 10 minutes trying to find the right affinity with the right, for my fusion rifle boost or whatever, or reload.
And
or
again,
armor.
the frustrating piece from my perspective is I don't play enough of that higher end content to get the materials needed to masterwork more than one full set of raid armor, or one full set of armor in general. Like, I know what's sitting in my vault right now is probably enough to masterwork maybe one more piece of armor.
Mm-hmm.
And let's remember that you want to master. There's certain exotic pieces that you want to master work as well. It's like, okay, well, in this situation for this particular fight or whatever we're doing right here, I want to use this piece of exotic armor. And so you've got exotic pieces that you are going to be your go-to. Like, I like using Assassin's Cowl in this particular place, or
right.
I like using I would like to have my double dodge in this particular situation. So I want that piece to be masterworked, or I'm going into a horde mode type of thing. So I want my Orpheus rigs available. So I want that piece masterworked. So you've got exotic pieces that you also want to masterwork. And, it's expensive. It's way too expensive for a casual player, in my opinion.
And it looks like they're going to sunset stuff too, sunset armor as well. I have to admit, I'm a little disappointed about the armor sunsetting thing. I feel like that's going a little too far. Like, why?
I feel like I would be more comfortable with it if the Ascendant materials were a little easier to come by. Right.
Some more generosity there. Yep.
Yeah. And I think the mod system, I'm with you, Salliebug. I think the mod system is a mess. I think that there's just so much going on, and it's really overwhelming.
You shouldn't have to memorize, like, okay, well, if I want to take this scout rifle in, which piece of affinity do I want that's gonna most benefit me, and then I have to go back and forth. I like that there are so many different avenues and so many aesthetically different armor pieces to put on, because the fashion piece, and plus it's just nice to have, just like we all don't necessarily like to wear the same exact clothes every single day. It's nice that we can have our Guardian not wear the same exact clothes every day.
I'm not a game developer, and I really don't know what the answer. I don't have really good ideas about how to do this, but how about, like, if you, instead of auto rifle loader and enhanced auto rifle loader, that you just had a good auto rifle loader, so that cuts things in half. I think you can. I'm thinking you could streamline this to where everything's universal, except for, and we were talking about, Salliebug and I were talking about making the stat parts of your armor just free. You don't have to pay for that. You can just, that slot should be free. You shouldn't have to pay Glimmer to put a stat mod in, and then everything else should just be a slot. I don't.
So you're saying changing, like, so if you wanted to be, like, say, max mobility, you want to be as fast as you possibly can, so you can get around corners and get to where you need to be in the most efficient way possible. Mm-hmm. And so in order to do that, you would need to have kind of like already gear that's rolled out with some pretty high mobility, and then be able to put a mobility mod in there. And you're saying, and those mods that change those, I know that some of them are pretty expensive, right? They take like 4 or 5 slots.
Well, there's 2 costs. There's glimmer cost, and then there's slot cost, right? Right. The other thing I would argue is stop making us do math or feeling inadequate when we're only using 8 out of 10 of our energy bars. So like, just have slots. You know, when you run out of slots, you run out of slots, and then you can decide. You can still decide on things like what won't stack and what will stack and things like that's fine. And then just, what's wrong with having everything universal? You could still have elemental affinity, so that if you want to have super resistance against solar, you know, depending on whatever modifier is on the ordeal nightfall, you could still do that. And that's what the affinity would be, is solar armor gives you extra resistance against solar damage. So you could still have affinity, but not have it tied to, just have the mods be universal. And then again, you'd have to streamline the mods, because like Stego said, there's just so many of them. I think one of the things that the elemental affinity system offers is, screen time or screen real estate. When you roll over that, you don't have this huge, grid of all the mods for that slot. So you'd have to streamline that and maybe do away with some of these.
In all honesty, when I thought this, and I did actually watch the stream when they were introducing, but I was even like, I couldn't really follow it when they were introducing the new mod system. But in my mind, it was like, oh, well, I mostly am a void subclass hunter. I really like my tether. I like being a support player, so I can just throw down my tether and hopefully, help out, because I know that I'm not as good at killing things. So I like being the support player, and it's definitely a support subclass. And in my mind, I thought, oh, okay, so you have affinity, so I should be trying to get an all void affinity, because that's a subclass that I use most often. And I still don't even know from this point of view, does that actually help, or does it not have anything to do with that? Like, what's the elemental affinity, and does it do I have a boost if I'm going with a void subclass and have a void affinity armor, or is that affinity armor really just related to which weapons and which mods you can put in versus which ones you can't, and there's no other
well, it used to be that
nothing else
be that it gave you resistance. I don't know if it still does. Do you know?
It can. In the generals mod slot, where you can either put your mobility or your intellect mod in, you can also put in the void damage resistance.
Okay, so it's
damage
mod.
Resistance.
It's a mod.
So if you have
it's not inherent.
So again, if you have a void helmet, and it means you have the opportunity to put in void resistance in that. It should be inherent. If it's a void helmet, it should just already be inherent that you get, and not like a crazy amount, but maybe some minor help to going
kind of like how it was in like D2 vanilla.
Yeah, kind of like it was in D2 Vanilla, and I am not one to, and I feel like we should say that because there are a lot of people who felt like Vanilla D2. D2 or D1?
D2.
D2. A lot of people, right? A lot of people were feeling like that was almost too watered down. The content was just a little bit too watered down, and
well, that was back when Destiny was still kind of having like a crisis of identity, and it wasn't until Bungie really broke away from Activision where they thought about what is the core mission statement of the game, because back then it really felt more like it was a shooter with some mild RPG and customization elements. And since then they've branched into more like, it's a lot more like WoW, I feel.
I feel like they did that even before the break with Activision. I mean, maybe there was talk of already negotiations with how we're going to split. Yes. I mean, that was a beautiful masterstroke by Bungie, I feel, Forsaken was, to get out of be the game rated G for everyone. Get rid of the darkness. This is going to be about all fun and games for ages 8 and up. And I feel like the antidote for that was beautifully done, and that was to kill Cade and make it a dark game again with bring back the darkness of the game. And it's been on a beautiful story arc ever since. I feel like those of us who love the lore have had a treat. I mean, it's like just a series of novels coming out.
Well, I think that
beautiful.
This kind of circles us back to what we were talking about in the very beginning of this podcast, and that is them delaying the next expansion.
Yep.
And I think everyone felt the vanilla D2 was rushed. It felt rushed. It felt like it didn't have a whole lot of content. It felt like it changed things that it didn't need to change, because it was a whole nother game as opposed to just being a huge expansion from D1. And that everyone kind of felt like that was related to whatever contract they have with Activision and what and releasing of content. So now they're in control of those decisions, and everyone is pretty much excited about it. But I feel like they are a self-publisher as well, and so we have to give them some leeway of being the self-publisher, and they're also in the middle of this pandemic.
Right.
And
I think that's a bigger factor than people realize.
Everyone is making huge adjustments and it has brought huge challenges to everyday life, but also work life for
big time.
A good portion of the population, and they're one of them. They're in the thick of it. They went into lockdown way earlier than even the rest of the country. Because Washington was hit pretty hard pretty early on. And
they also have a division in China. And so they knew, they were like, y'all, this is serious. Go into lockdown very early.
And I feel because of that, it's like you have to make an adjustment. And when you think, oh, we'll be able to go back, we're going to be, they anticipate being able to be back in the offices and working together to work out the tweaks, and you think you're going to be able to do that, and then all of a sudden it's like, nope, we still need to be in lockdown. We are not ready to have anybody go back in and work together. You have to make an adjustment. You have to make adjustments there. So, I mean, we rarely work a lot over the summer. but we've had meetings almost once a week with our work this summer, and that's been partly because
that's draining.
There's a lot that you have to consider in terms of what are we going to what are the scenarios of returning back to school, and what is it going to look like? And there's a lot of discussions that have to happen around it. So I know that I'm working harder and more over the summer. So I can't imagine.
Yeah. So we were talking about
them.
Yeah, we were talking about how they've learned to work remotely, and going back into work would be disruptive at this point for them to figure out. Now you have to relearn a whole new scenario. Well, it's not like going back to work like it was before. It's going back with social distancing and masks and all that stuff. I hear a package of something. What are you eating over there, Stego?
Nothing. I'm just
No chips?
laying down. I think it's my pillow squeaking.
He's got a very
who does a podcast lying down? I'll tell you who. Greenstego. Well, that's perfect segue into this week at Bungie. Not? We got a TWAB on Thursday.
We should probably talk. I don't think they talked to.
Yeah, we talked about getting this podcast down to about an hour, and so we're coming up on that time now. So I feel like we should definitely delve in to the TWABville.
Yeah, let's see what's going on with the TWAB. I know a lot of the
come up with a little
for this postponement, which we've already talked about quite a bit, so we don't need to talk about that
so
anymore.
I've got up on the screen now. For my fellow guests here, I've got up on the screen the season of arrivals, sort of their new calendar of events. So we're in July. Of course, we've already gone through the contact events that we've been doing, and Moments of Triumph has arrived July 7th through November 10th. So you got plenty of time now for that. New Triumphs, new seals. The next item is.
Can I interrupt you and just say kudos to our raid team for finally, and this is part of like the Moments of Triumph coming out. We finally beat Spire of Stars.
Yeah, we did.
And that was one thing that
still
we
difficult.
hadn't done.
Yeah.
But because we just could not get it together to get that boss all the way down. And yes, we're more powerful. And we had some lag issues. I think we're more powerful, maybe a little more skilled player. I think when I shoot my gun, I'm more likely to at least get a body shot in as opposed to missing completely. So maybe an improvement in skill level, at least for some of us who needed that improvement.
Right.
So I just wanted to bring that out. I'm excited.
Is that a public shout out you're giving, Salliebug? Is that a public shout out?
A public shout out to our raid team, but I'm just excited that that Moments of Triumph for the raids is kind of opening up that content for us again to just say, hey, like that's just sitting in the back of our minds of something we haven't done yet, and let's do it. Let's try to get that done. So
okay. And then we already talked about Solstice of Heroes coming. That will be coming along August 11th. Do you think
that's where the next... That because there's one more piece of there's another exotic weapon quest coming up. So do you think that's coming from Solstice of Heroes?
It's the evacuation quest.
You said evacuation.
Right, so it's almost like the quest that is leading up to the end game. So do you think that'll come later? It'll come
Yeah, I think that they're.
I think it
pushing
was
that back.
originally designed to come up in Solstice of Heroes, because Solstice of Heroes was the event that was going to happen like 3 to 4 weeks in front of, right? 3 to 4 weeks in front of the new expansion coming out.
Yeah.
So do you think they've delayed that quest to like start maybe around Festival of the Lost instead, or even beyond after Festival of the Lost?
Yeah, I think so. I think
what's
that
your idea?
My idea is that this the pyramid ships have also experienced a delay due to COVID, and so the annihilation of half of our solar system.
They're
can
having
wait.
a social distance, so they have to like get together and coordinate pushing the buttons to annihilate planets. So they're trying to figure out how they're going to do that from a social distance, and so it got delayed.
COVID is the new
So Asher Mir can collect a little bit more data before we tell him to get out, and then a couple more things happen. We get Travelers Chosen.
And then Festival of the Lost is due to drop October 6th. Probably that would have been its date anyway, even if there was an expansion,
so.
But they figured, hey, we can at least bring that in.
Isn't it usually a 3-week event?
Yeah, I think
Seems
so.
about right.
Yeah.
It seems like it's always been about a 3-week. I love it. I love the mask. I love Ava Levante.
They're planning a handful of ritual activity modifiers to look forward to. We've got increased valor, increased infamy, nothing new. Increased redacted. They're sort of whetting our curiosity there. A few additional Iron Banner events, which is always fun for those of us who like the Iron Banner.
What do we think that in that redacted is? Increased redacted.
Glory.
I think strike loot.
Do you think so? I was wondering if it would be if it was going to be Forge related. Try to get people to go back into the Forge. Now, Neil, you had talked about this a little bit. Sooltime, you talked about how the Forge gear is all sunsetting. Is the Forge sunsetting?
I don't think so.
Because the Forge technically is on... Well, some of the Forges are... Well, you know they're on Nessus and the EDZ.
But neither of those locations are going away.
Neither of those locations are going away. So I'm curious as to why the Forge weapons and armor are getting sunsetted, but that particular
activity isn't.
I mean, that's just going to start a whole new grind, right? It's just like, it's almost like starting from ground zero, right? It's like the forges are still going to be there, but if you want a 1360 blast furnace, you're going to need to go back into and do that forge. So are they going to put a new, it's almost refresh to the whole forge idea? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I don't think they're thinking that much about the forge.
On the other hand, they could be preparing some, repurposing of the forges that we don't know about yet. It may be that you go in to earn some sort of currency or special drop.
Well, maybe Ada 1 is working in the background.
You then infuse into your forge armor to bring it up to the new power cap. Who knows?
Or she's Ada 1 is working in the background to have a whole new set of armor and a whole new set of weapons to take on this new threat. So maybe there'll be a whole new refresh when Beyond Light comes along. But
just
that
have to
wouldn't
keep
be part
watching
of that
Houndish.
increased. That wouldn't be part of that increased redacted.
It could
So
be.
I don't know.
Could be. And
It could be
here's
anything.
the thought that I'm just having right now in response to you. 801, not a fan of Guardians. Not a fan of the light. So she may get some stasis abilities.
She may
sign on to the.
Yeah, she may play an important part in this whole new thing coming on in Beyond Light, but that wouldn't necessarily be the increased. We had a suggestion in the chat that said maybe increased XP help those who are still trying to level up their season pass all the way up, to give them that extra boost to get.
I wouldn't mind that at all.
No, I think for the casual player that would be a great idea.
That would be awesome.
That is a super great idea from the chat. Thank you, Fractious Heart. Because they're from the casual player, you're always feeling like, Stego, how many you purchased the season pass, is that correct?
Yes.
I know. I have. Sooltime, you are. Again, we're not we're hardcore fans, so we purchase all the content. We just don't necessarily how many have you gotten all the way to 100 from when they actually brought? How many have there been? 3, right? We're on the 3rd, where they've introduced this season pass idea. There's been 3. How many have you gotten all the way to 100?
Maybe 1. I can't remember if I got all the way. I know I got into the high 90s with.
I feel like you got there with the first one. I want to say you did.
Not at all.
No?
Not at all.
Oh, no.
I didn't unlock any of the universal because it was September. It was that September season, and I started teaching, so I barely got to play any Destiny at all.
That might.
And I really kind of wanted those universal ornaments from that season pass, but that just didn't work out for me. But the next season, Season of Dawn, with the virtuous gear, I did get
close.
That one, I think I got pretty close. I think I got to like 98. I know I did at least get all the universal ornaments, and that was like the thing I wanted most.
There was one I didn't get to. Was that the last season pass, Neil? There was one where I was just like, I grinded the heck out of the last weekend we possibly could play it, and I was able to get those like last 10 or 15 levels. It was a lot of playing. It was like beyond my comfort level playing. So, I'm all for it being an increased XP to help those casual players who have their own content droughts in terms of being able to play and when they can. And especially, I don't know. Here's an idea. If you've bought the season pass, like if you paid the $10 already, I feel like you should have, and maybe this is already inherently in there, but I feel like you should have, if you've purchased it, that you should have increased amount of XP already. Like your progress through that season pass should be I'm
pretty sure you do. I'd have to double check it, but I think that the level 1 season pass, or early on in the season pass, you unlock like a permanent XP boost of like 10%.
And that's only
There's
for the
incremental
people who,
XP boosts all the way through the season
the
pass,
payment
correct?
one?
Yeah, that should be on like the. Was that Sooltime?
There's incremental XP boosts, fire team XP boosts, and then just personal XP boosts throughout the season pass, is my understanding, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And those are only for the people who pay. right? Those boosts, those little boosts.
I believe so.
Okay, so it is kind of inherent. I mean, my first thought was if you bought the season pass, those first 20 levels should just be automatic, right? You paid, it's 100 levels, and like you said, Stego, it's like you didn't even come close. And I can't quite remember if I got all the way to. I think there was one season I didn't get all the way to 100. But I remember one other season. This season was easier for me, but because it's in the summer. But there was one other season where I just felt like, God, I played
Hold on a second. What's
so
that noise?
much.
I'm hearing that noise again.
It's just some rustling around,
Okay.
repositioning. It's all good.
All right.
So anyway, all right, I'm sorry. I derailed us. Let's move on. I felt like we needed to talk about the season pass, though, from a casual perspective.
Sure. The next section of the TWAB is about the Master Nightfalls. The Grandmaster Nightfall activity. Mm-hmm. And I don't think anybody in our clan has ventured there yet, to the Grandmaster Nightfalls.
I don't think so.
I'm gonna say no. I don't think I have. I don't think I've chatted with anyone who has even attempted that highest end level. So this is some of that end game content from a casual perspective. Like this whole paragraph is like, yeah. I mean, I can understand the desire to, hey, look, if you're going to put the effort into trying to get that, do that high-end content, that you would want the rewards to match that. So I'm okay with it, but I just know that it doesn't really affect me at all.
Well, the thing that I see kind of from my perspective, an issue here is they're guaranteeing ascendant materials, but I would want ascendant materials so that I would be able to do the Nightfall Ordeal Grandmaster.
Right.
But I need to complete the Grandmaster in order to get those ascendant materials, and then.
Yeah, it's almost like it's a catch-22. It's like I love that they're giving they're opening up all of those parameters and giving them opportunities to get that. I don't think there's enough opportunities for the casual player to get those ascendant materials. There just isn't. I mean, but outside of and what I've been doing on a pretty regular basis, and I should again say from a casual perspective, I don't play my alternate characters that often. It's not like I get on my alternate characters and go down and see Spider and get my 2 or 3 ascendant core or whatever they are, the cores every day, which isn't really playing the game, right? It's just traveling to one spot and going to see a guy and pushing a button. Mm-hmm. And I have been, at least on my main character, trying to do those 3, I think it's 3 or 4, I think it's 4 daily bounties from the gunsmith, and just going down to like the EDZ and switching up the different guns and getting those cores. But outside of doing those, and I don't have that many cores. Partly because I just masterworked that one set of gear I was just talking about. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I don't think there's enough opportunity for the casual player to get ascendant materials.
Yeah. Well, a quick shout out to Funnybone for subbing to the YouTube channel. Thank you, Funnybone. We appreciate your support and your continued existence.
Thank you, Funny
in the Destiny community. So the next section is farming with dogs. The 5 raids entered featured status. We love this because we're casual raiders. becoming hardcore raiders the last few weeks. I think we're really like in a swing. I mean, we can almost do Garden of Salvation blindfolded at this point.
I wouldn't say blindfolded, but
I bet we could complete it on alt characters.
Well, I mean, I would say this. It used to be that when we would say, hey, let's give the raid a go this weekend, it would be you have to have nothing else on your plate for that weekend because it would be a weekend-long engagement. We'd play... like we'd work on it all one day until we all had raid brain and say we can't do anymore, we're calling lassies, we can't get this done, and then we'd all get on like the next day and try to do it, and with varied success. And I feel like because we're trying to keep it in our repertoire more often, the synergy is better. I think we're working better together, and we're also, again, I will, at least from my point of view, I feel like I've improved as a player, and I feel like I contribute more, or at least know my role and how I can contribute. So
I think our next
Kingsfall.
They mentioned that I haven't. We're still talking about trying to farm for either the. What Ghost was talking about.
Anarchy.
Farming for the Sparrow as well as the Anarchy. And I'd love to do that. They talk about in the TWAB the Contender's Ghost Shell, which comes from doing Prestige Leviathan, which I think we could do.
We could probably try to tackle that. It's, there's... And the Sparrow, I'm a little bit more concerned about because I think that particular part of Scourge of the Past, most of the time it's one or two of the same players every time who can get to the end and push the button. So the idea behind... But I guess if each one of us just say, okay, your goal is to get to that button and push that button... that maybe we could do it. I don't know. It's worth a try, right?
It's worth a try.
It's adding again another layer to. Okay, before every time we did this, we just get on, try to get through it, and see what happens. But add that other layer. But
the other thing I'd mention is that the Seeker of Opulence perk remains active on that Contender's Ghost Shell. So if we get that Ghost Shell, you can get better rolls on exotic armor. How do you like that idea?
I like them apples.
I like it okay, but I'm gonna go. I'm going to go back to my whole idea with the Armor 2.0 in general. It's like, gosh, I don't mind getting higher level, but if I've just spent I have a very small purse of Ascendant materials, and now I get another piece of armor that is a higher roll than the one I have, but the one I have is already masterworked. It's like... It's great that this is a higher level, but I don't have the materials.
Well, Salliebug, that wouldn't be a problem if you were regularly running the Grandmaster Nightfalls, because they reward you with all sorts of enhancement prisms and armor, exotic armor stuff to masterwork things.
I'm going to step away, but I'm going to let you guys keep on talking. I'll be back in a few.
Yep.
Step away for a minute.
The rest of it is almost like patch notes, it looks like. They talk about the latest hotfix, and they are extending the release date. Effective maximum power through infusions. Everything's getting pushed back, and then they talk about some resolved issues. Wither Horde's projectiles. First of all, Stego, do you use the Wither Horde at all?
Oh, yes. I love the Wither Horde.
Oh, my gosh. Did they hit it out of the park with the Wither Horde? And have you gotten your Ruinous Effigy yet?
I have. I haven't toyed around with it very much. I just got the Catalyst.
I will say this to the listeners and to you. that the ruinous effigy is a thing of beauty. It is just wonderful. It is so much fun. I haven't had this much fun with a weapon in a long time. And, you know, it comes on the heels of Witherhoard. Two brilliant, brilliantly conceived and crafted weapons in the game. And I know they had a little problem with the Witherhoard that I think they had to fix. It was a little broken in certain situations. But man, this ruinous effigy has... And I shared that cool guy video showing suggesting a technique of how to use it to get close, because you can't get stomped when you're in its version of Ward of Dawn. I forget exactly what it's called when you're left triggering it on console. You're guarding with it with the orb that you've created from a kill. You can go right up to bosses, slam them, melee, and then get out that sword, and you're good, man. It's such a great, fun technique. It's a very easy button combination to learn and become habit, and it's just so much fun. It's very satisfying for me personally. Or just to go around meleeing with the thing is fun. It's got that thing where when you melee one thrall and you're mashing the button, it automatically darts over and slams the one that's next to it, and you can just chain these in Escalation Protocol or anywhere, the Reckoning, where there's a lot of hordes coming at you.
Yeah, I love these weapons that truly feel exotic.
They really do, and they are space magic. You know, they are purely the fantasy of this world, this Paracasual world you're in. It's just beautiful, and they fit in. They just feel really comfortable in the whole universe, the lore that goes along with it, and everything. The reassigned interact button didn't revive players. Yeah, they have a lot of trouble with the controls ever since they reworked them. When glide jump canceling, Warlocks and Titans auto jumped.
Can we talk about that for a little bit?
What, the interact button didn't revive players on custom controller schemes?
Well, just the custom. I was wondering if anybody any of the three of us have actually attempted to do any of that custom mapping.
Not really, no.
No, for my abilities that I have with my hands, I can use the default controller layout pretty well.
Do you use
and that
Puppeteer?
Works very well for me.
I have an Elite controller, an Xbox Elite controller, and the only thing that I did it was that the clicking of the thumbsticks was definitely something that was very difficult for me to kind of like carry out. And so the only change I've made, and that was with my Elite controller, was to assign the clicking to the paddles underneath. So, but I haven't done any of the other. I mean, I feel like it was interesting that they added this, because if you have a controller, a lot of the controllers that you can buy, at least the higher end ones, already allow you to do that mapping, right?
Didn't some of it have to do with accessibility too? I mean, I don't know. Anyway, it screwed up a lot of things,
Microsoft
like the sprint canceling and everything. It screwed up a lot of... And getting on and off the Sparrow is a little wonky if you're on your Sparrow and you've got the HUD screen up to see where things are. You can no longer X off your Sparrow. You have to hit A to get off your Sparrow.
Right. I guess what I was trying to get at is it felt like they added this feature that was kind of not needed, because most consoles allowed for kind of like individual mapping. I know PCs allow for it. And so you can already kind of like map things based on, or maybe PCs couldn't, and that this added, but it seems like most of the bugs were console related.
Yeah, well, I think it might have been more to do with that, the adaptable controller that Microsoft came out with recently.
Oh, the true
so it
culprit.
may have just been, it may, well,
Coincided.
It may have just been in trying to get that to work more seamlessly with Destiny. And I'd say that if that is the case, then it's well worth the minor hassles that some of us have been experiencing, and it's well worth introducing that compatibility, and these are kinks that are worth ironing out.
Could this be in preparation for the next generation consoles coming along as well?
Could be.
Could be. The fencing salute emote allowed players to get out of the environment. Where have I heard that before? It was the bureaucratic walk, the silly walk emote. I remember when you were able to go through walls with that. Yeah.
That's the second time that's happened.
This one actually affected us.
We're not ones to go into other parts. That's not a hack that we delve into. I think there are people who that's all they do. They get on Destiny and they try to find the parts in the environment. Where you and I watched a whole video.
Yeah, it's another subculture in Destiny, isn't it?
How to get this chest in the Leviathan, and then it was like this
glitching through the map, right?
Of like blindly hopping through parts of the map that you shouldn't be on. I'm like, are you kidding me?
It's a weird subculture. I don't understand it.
But it was crazy, and I think there was another one for the that Sparrow racing tunnel that we were talking about as well, and I was like, oh my god, are you like? But there are people who do that, and that's how they get their enjoyment, which is fine. But
whatever flips your flipper. This is an interesting one. The Emissary Whisperer Triumph has been removed. Is that the one where you see all the emissaries in the Prophecy dungeon? I think it is. All right, so they couldn't fix it, so they removed it.
We have a member of our clan who was a little bit felt like they had spoken with all the different emissaries and still wasn't getting that.
It wasn't working, so they removed it.
It wasn't proccing, even though there were people who had for sure talked to all the different emissaries. So they removed it. So now we know.
And they also fixed that glitch where players would get stuck in the Prophecy Dungeon's hallway between the Wasteland and the Hexahedron areas. I think that happened to Fallout when he was trying to do his solo flawless, didn't it? He got stuck in there, if I remember right.
Yeah, there was a content creator that we were watching, and I know I got fully invested in this is a shout out to Fallout Plays. I got fully invested in watching him try to solo that dungeon flawlessly. It was that was some fun entertainment. So
oh my god, what a nightmare. I can't imagine.
No, and I think that's the other reason that I became fully invested in is like, well, I need to get emotionally invested in you doing it because I realize this is not something that I will ever take on. So
yeah. And then the final thing in the TWAB that we should look at today is just the known issues that are out there, and they mostly have to do with the ends to a mean quest.
Means to an end?
No, ends to a mean, it says here. No, I'm just kidding. It is means to an end. I reversed it. Some players can't progress for this or that reason. Players who didn't claim the reward in the previous week will be locked out from acquiring and completing it the following week. That's nasty.
Oh, how frustrating.
So make sure you grab your reward. It's an issue. Players unable to launch the interference mission may be able to play through and complete it by joining someone else already in the mission. We use that trick for our adventures. Right, our heroic adventures.
And from a casual player's perspective, that is completely frustrating. Because what if you don't have an alt character and you're also a solo player?
Make an alt character and run through the Red War.
Right. So I could see if this. We're fortunate that nobody we know has actually experienced this, But wow, that's a huge one, because if you happen to not know someone that you could like join to complete it, because you're a solo player and none of your friends play, I don't know.
Yeah, well, we wouldn't know any solo players, because if we knew them, then they wouldn't be solo players anymore.
Right. I mean, part of the reason that we all play, and we touched upon this in our last episode, was that it's a social piece. It keeps us connected with the other members of our clan, who have become very good friends. And I can't imagine.
Speak for yourself.
A week or two going by without being able to like get on and play at least a little bit of that content with you and
friends.
So yeah,
we're all friends.
It's a social experience.
So on that note, I think this is a good place to wrap it up. We've gone a little over the time we had hoped, but that's indicative of good discussion and good coffee. So I would say thank you, Funny Bone, for subbing. Thanks to Catherine for dropping in. Thanks to Fractious Heart for dropping in, a.k.a. Romance Girl. We hope to have you all on the podcast at some point, and we'll see you next Saturday. Next Saturday, are we podcasting?
Yeah, next Saturday. That is the 25th, I believe.
So we'll see you next Saturday morning. You've been listening to the Paracasual Destiny Podcast. This has been episode 1. Please send us your cat pictures or comments or feedback or questions to our Twitter. You can find us on Twitter. I think it's at ParacasualP on Twitter. And sub to the YouTube and hit that little bell if you like this sort of thing. And thanks. Goodbye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.